Wild Ones Podcast, Episode 2, the show where we chat about bike stuff. I'm Francis, this is Jimmy, I'm jet lagged.
I don't care. We've got work to do, Francis.
I actually feel okay. How you been?
Have you not been using your jet lag advisor on your watch?
I don't have that on this one.
Oh, do you not?
Yeah, it's only the new watches.
No, I've got it, but I don't go anywhere.
Can I borrow your watch?
No.
Nice then, man.
No. So what have you been up to this week?
I've been at Garmin Unbound in Kansas.
I watched the video.
It was a nice walk. For the audience members who don't know, big bike race, gravel bike race in Kansas, the heart of America. And the event had very mixed reactions from the people who signed up to it and the media, because there was a large section of walking at the start, because the mud was like super, super sticky. They call it peanut butter mud in the area, and it clogs up your bike and you can't ride it.
I heard someone refer to it as peanut butter mud.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, I don't know.
It's just like
crunchy
sticky.
peanut butter. Yeah, sticky.
So
But
it's
it's
like
so sticky. Like you're not only, it looks smooth, it looks rideable. It just looks like normal mud.
yeah.
In the UK, we just do not have mud like this. You go through and your bike stops. You get about 20 meters and it stops. And then you try and push it and you can't push the bike either, obviously.
This is an example of why cyclocross people have a pit lane and a second
Two
bike.
bikes, yeah.
And they just get jet wash, next lap, jet wash, next lap.
But that's English mud, that's bad enough. But this stuff was extra sticky. To the point where, Jack brought a toothbrush. He stole it from the Airbnb. I hope he didn't put it back. And he was scraping the mud from the inside of his forks and like away from his, like, get it all out of the drivetrain and stuff. And then you'd get about 20 more meters, or you could wheel it like with the front wheel only, because there's more clearance for 20 meters down the road, and then it would clog up again. So he carried your bikes the whole way. The mud was so sticky, your shoes got big. It was like hobbit feet. So you're walking along and you have big, heavy, muddy feet.
Wowza.
And then even that, you had to scrape it off with your hands. So you were stopping every 2 seconds. Now, I don't know what the pros did. They must have just like jogged it kind of slowly. Some of the pros really struggled because they're pro cyclists. They're not runners, are they?
There is something a little bit controversial about your time at Unbound.
What?
You were meant to be riding the new gravel L-Twoo group set.
I was excited to ride the L-Twoo gravel group set.
What group set did you ride?
SRAM Rival.
No, you didn't.
SRAM Force.
No.
SRAM.
Red mullet.
No, I had Rival levers.
Oh, rival levers.
And an Eagle mech.
Eagle
There was nothing red on there. Only the crankset is red. None of it was red.
Actually,
You don't know. And this is your fault. You did it.
There's actually
So Jimmy, guys at home, there's none of it is matching on that bike. We installed L-Twoo RX, the gravel group set from L-Twoo on my bike, which is hydraulic brakes, but mechanical shifting. And I was actually quite excited to test it on a very big, scary, long bike race. But I didn't end up doing it because Jimmy took it off my bike.
We had a conversation where we jested about there may be a possibility that you wouldn't get around Unbound. And that was probably because that the shifting just isn't very good with a fully internal cable, because it's not meant to be like that. The frame is not designed for that group set.
I think it's a wireless only frame.
Yeah. So when I was doing some bike build stuff with Nick,
I the executive decision to...
I scrapped the group set. I rebuilt it with the mullet group set that you had. You didn't exactly know that I was going to do it, although we did joke about me doing it, and then you rode it on a red one.
But when you did do it and then I saw it, I was like, well, it's better.
Well, of course it's better. It's a very expensive group set. Was that the right decision? We'll never know. But you got around.
Go around.
You did.
My bike's in a bit of a state now. So instead of ruining the cheaper group set, I've ruined the expensive group set.
Last time we talked about the Netflix show that's coming out, Tour de France Unchained.
Yeah. Did you watch it?
It's now launched. I've watched the whole thing. Have you watched the whole thing?
Yeah, well, no, you should binge watch it. Right?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, that was weird. I saw some stuff in the media like, oh, we're going to be reviewing it every week or talking about it every week. In my head, I was like, oh, so they're going to release one a week or something. But no, it's just in true Netflix style, bang, it's all up there. You can just binge watch it.
Maybe some people like a slow life and do things once a week to enjoy it more.
I only watched one.
One what?
episode.
You've only watched one episode?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
because I enjoy the slow life.
So you're going to follow it along with the media world and
Maybe.
review it
I
with
don't know. The first one was all right. It was good. As a medium, I used to be into pro cycling, haven't been in, watching it very intently recently at all. I know some of the riders. I knew that it was good last year, the Tour de France. This series, it catered less for the beginner, like newbie getting into pro cycling, than I thought it would. But it was good. I enjoyed it.
So we specifically commented last week on how we don't follow pro cycling.
The surprise of lots of people.
I've watched the whole thing, and it has excited me to watch pro cycling again.
Oh, that's a good sign.
I've watched it in the past.
Yeah.
I think last year was just a particularly busy year for me. Like I didn't even ride my bike, let alone watch people riding bikes.
But the thing is, you're starting from a position of like, you ride a bike already. You know the basics of race tactics. You know why riders ride behind each other. Things like that. Really basic stuff.
Yeah.
But there's going to be people who watch this on Netflix. They click it and they don't know why is there a bunch? Why is there guys riding off the front early in the race? Why are they letting them do that? All these really basic things they didn't really explain.
Did they need to know that?
I don't know. It's very hard to put yourself in the... I need to ask someone who doesn't know anything about cycling. I don't know anyone.
As someone who's watched the whole thing, it is like I think it's a really good depiction of like the exciting thing. Like they've made something that's exciting. So hopefully what happens from that is people do watch it that aren't into cycling and go, actually cycling's just really fast. There's loads going on. It's really like high octane and there's loads of energy. So it's actually something I will have a go at and see what it's like.
Even from episode 1, and they covered mainly in that episode Fabio Jakobsen, who's the sprint. So when I like last year, it was a bit of a bit controversial that Cav was not taken to the Tour de France by his team, by Quick-Step. And some people were really upset about that because they wanted to, beat Eddie Merckx's record and all of that stuff. And he's coming to the end of his career. Would it be his last Tour de France? No one knew. And then they took a different sprinter instead. And being English, it's just like, oh, who's that guy? Like some...
I can tell you
but actually, he's a really nice guy, isn't he? And he had a cool backstory, and I didn't know about that. I didn't know he had a massive crash and had to recover from it. Spoilers, guys. And it was great. It was really emotional, and just from one episode, 1.5 I watched, and just from that, I was like, I want to see how well this guy does. How is he going to get, more stage wins?
I think what I've mostly got from watching the whole series is I feel like I'm back up to date with like who's who.
Yeah.
Because that was the thing. Like we commented last time. Like I just didn't know who anyone was anymore apart from the old timers.
Yeah. And it's a whole new changing of the guard, isn't it? You now have the hitters are pretty much all different. There's that funny clip, isn't it? Geraint Thomas, like someone pointing out when Pikachu was born, and it's like he was still in school or something.
He was in high school.
He was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah. And Vingegaard, is that how you pronounce it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So on
Very
the subject...
good. No, I have one more thing about this, actually. For the viewers at home, turn off the dubbing. Did you watch it subtitled or dubbed?
Dubbed.
Okay. It's terrible.
I thought
in my opinion. You think it's fine?
Yeah.
It's that weird kind of
I quite like
English voice over the top of... I don't know. I think you're going to get so much more from it. Admittedly, I understand quite a lot of French, so it probably helped. But I think with the emotion, it's because like we make videos all the time. With the emotion in your voice makes a big difference to the outcome, the perception when you're watching a series or anything on a screen. So having it in French but with subtitles, you get the emotion of the riders much better.
I definitely don't think it's as bad as people are suggesting in the media. I think there are a few bits.
It's like people talked about it.
I think so. Yeah.
Right.
There's a few bits where it's like, oh, that's a bit odd. I actually think the best bit about it is they've almost like staged a commentator throughout the series. So it's basically someone that's narrating what's going on and the actual like race bits of it, but it's done in the style of a commentator, and it actually like just links it all together really nice and actually feels a bit like
you're watching the race. Yeah.
For the next section of this, I want to give a trigger warning. We're going to be discussing serious injury and death, and obviously I appreciate that isn't the sort of thing that everyone wants to hear. So feel free to skip to the next section of this podcast video thing.
The Women's Tour of the Pyrenees professional bike race was cancelled by the UCI because the riders were racing in unsafe conditions, and the riders from the teams protested. There was issues with rider safety, and I remember seeing a few things that got posted on Twitter. There were clips of riders descending, having to overtake buses. There are cars coming the other way up the descent, which obviously is extremely dangerous. Why wasn't there a rolling road closure or closed roads for that? And that is what is being discussed very heatedly in the media right now.
Presumably, even an amateur race, it's dangerous if the roads are not closed. Like, it doesn't matter that like it's pros, that it's...
No. You would, for some reason, you would expect more, but I think we all agree, if you are organising a bike race, safety has to be first in, before you even consider putting on a race.
Do you want to read this quote that was in a French newspaper, quote from the organisers of the event themselves?
Translated by my mum.
Who is
French. So the quote says, "The girls have requirements that are not in line with their level. They think that they are in the Tour de France and that all the roads must be closed. But in France, you can't do that. To be honest, I don't think it's worth organising this race for these spoilt children. It wouldn't be beneficial for organisers, only demoralising." That is outrageous.
Yeah,
if you're going to organise a race, you do it safely.
The language in that as well.
I'm guessing they have a rolling road closure, which is essentially NEG motorbike riders, who are in the UK, they're called NEGs, National Escort Group. They go up ahead, stop the traffic, let the race come through, and then the other NEGs go ahead of the race, and they become, it's like a little leapfrog, so it keeps the race sectioned off from cars and they can't get in. Something has gone wrong with that, and there's been cars on the course making it unsafe. Lots of times, enough for people to complain and for the subsequent cancellation.
That's the thing, is that quote suggests to me that if that's what the organizer of the event thinks about the participants of the event, they don't care.
Well, of course they don't care.
Which is like, they actually don't care about their safety because they think they're spoilt children. That boils my blood.
They don't deserve to run a race at all. I actually have experience of this kind of situation before. So I was racing years ago in the UK, and I did a couple of races, elite level, 3 weeks apart these were. The first one was Severn Bridge Road Race, and the motorbike NEG riders had gone up the road to stop the traffic, to keep us safe. In the racing in the UK, we are told to race on the left-hand side of the white line. You're not supposed to overtake those white lines at all.
What do you mean, sorry? So do you mean the centre line?
Yeah, the centre line of the road.
So you still stay on the correct side of the road?
You stay on the correct side of the road.
Where you can.
As much as possible,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
However, you're made, in the briefing, it's like, we have a rolling road closure, this should be safe, At that time, and I'm not sure if this is still the case, at that time, NEG riders, the National Escort Group, have no legal power, or had no legal power, to stop cars. They could only ask. So it's their presence, it was their power.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in the first race, a car had essentially ignored the marshal, gone around and hit and killed one of my friends who was over the white line. And he died there.
Wow.
Then 3 weeks later, almost exactly the same situation, but the person that was hit by a car head on was one of the NEG riders who was training to be a fully fledged NEG. So this has happened in the UK. Like I've been in races, this is, a few meters away from me. And as far as I can tell, nothing's really changed. People are still, there are races being shut down and cancelled like this in the UK because people aren't happy, people are going over the white line too much. But to play devil's advocate, it's a bike race. It's very hard to stay within the white line. And if you want to move up, like I would, I I wouldn't race on the open road again. And those incidents led to me quitting bike racing about 5 months later, 6 months later.
Well, yeah, it's going to be, obviously it's the worst scenario for those riders and their families.
Absolutely worst.
But then,
worst
like,
thing imaginable.
The larger impact on everyone else is just it's just humongous, isn't it?
You know, part of me is like, yes, I want to support bike racing. I want the British cycling to flourish. When I say British cycling, not the company, I mean cycling in Britain to flourish. I want racing to be as well supported as possible. But races are being run within these weird parameters where the roads aren't closed. It's not even a proper rolling closure. It's like just one half of the road.
Yeah.
And you can't expect riders will never ever stay within the white line all the time. There's always going to be people overtaking. And
it's a race, of course.
It's a race.
Like there's width in a race, you know? In the crit racing I've done, like the tracks are always at least the equivalent of 2 lanes.
Yeah.
And it's always full, you know? So it's just, wow. That must be had a very definite impact on a lot of people.
Yeah. But the fact this has happened in a pro race, it makes you just think like, okay, well, it's not because it was an amateur race that's happening. It's just lack of care.
Have you ever witnessed a time trial in the UK?
Yeah.
Because you haven't done.
I've done some, yeah. Like A-road time trials, yeah.
Like that's always something which makes me very uncomfortable.
It's a bit sketchy.
Because in this country, at least, they're always on open roads, so there's also cars on the roads. They're usually on very significant fast roads with roundabouts on and things like that. And obviously they try and make them safe where they can, but it always feels...
You're still pretty much on a motorway.
Yes.
Like it's big.
Yeah.
It's big. Okay, it's not technically a motorway, but it is.
And
it's like the A3.
There'll always be roads that are used by cars going fast because they're trying to get home or they're trying to go on holiday and don't want to be held up. And then they've got a stream of cyclists that are then trying to overtake each other and not draft and specifically stay away from each other. And it just feels like a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah. A new study shows that cyclists wearing helmets and high-vis clothing are seen as less human. This is new research from Queensland University of Technology, and they asked 563 people their views on cyclists. 30% said they considered cyclists less than fully human. Researchers also tried to work out which images of cyclists people dehumanize the most, and the study found the most images of cyclists wearing helmets and safety vests. They were more likely to be dehumanized than those wearing normal clothes. Cyclists with helmets were perceived as less human than those without helmets. Cyclists with helmets were also perceived as less human than those wearing a cap. Cyclists with safety vests and no helmets were still perceived as less human. That's crazy. However, I thought this study had already been done, and that was my understanding anyway. I've always known, this discussion has been going on for a long time. I've done stuff with London Cycling Campaign around this before. I've made videos in the past on this topic, and I suppose this is a new study which is reinforcing the things people already thought, but that was my understanding anyway, which is why I sometimes wear a helmet and sometimes don't.
I've never seen you not wear a helmet.
Because you don't see me riding around town?
You used to ride your fixie around town without a helmet.
Yeah, around London.
What's the perception of the viewers of your vlogs back in the day if you didn't wear a helmet, or people that didn't wear helmets?
I get a few comments sometimes if I just wore a cycling cap, because sometimes I'd ride to go and film bike fit videos or something in Richmond with James, and I would cycle there without a helmet on. Sometimes people commented on it, but not that many comments. Personally, I would wear a helmet when I do a proper, a longer road ride or go mountain biking. And I like descending fast and I like riding trails. It makes sense to wear it then. But certainly around town, I don't know what.
I always wear a helmet. And the reason for me wearing a helmet is if I was to have an impact, I'm more likely to survive it if I banged my head really hard.
Sure.
Obviously, this is specifically around the perception of people. This makes me want to not wear a helmet so that people give me more space on the road.
Yeah.
However, I'm still going to because I'm safer if I do wear one, in theory. Especially because a lot of the riding I do actually isn't on public roads and it's actually on paths and trails.
Sure.
Like the equivalent of, I'm not mountain biking, but if you're mountain biking, you're not on a road, you're wearing a helmet because it's safer.
Yeah. Or if you want to do bigger stuff and be safer in that situation. I think a lot of the studies around helmets being, if you're falling off at low speed, do they actually help? It doesn't help concussion, for one. They do not help with concussion because the impact is still transferred into your head, apparently. But statistically, helmets don't directly make you safer because there is all this other stuff you have to take into account. If you're wearing a helmet, this is using myself as an example, if I wear a helmet, I'm more likely to descend at 50 mile an hour than if I wasn't, because I wouldn't if I wasn't wearing a helmet. So the statistics are all skewed because of that, right?
This isn't a massive sample either. 563
not that many
is not huge, and obviously you don't know
There's not that many people.
who those people are. But
Anecdotally, do you ever, having ridden with both helmets and not helmets, anecdotally, I notice people treat you differently in cars. When I'm in Lycra, and you look like you know what you're doing, you look like you're a competent cyclist, people pass very close, sometimes on purpose, aggressively, because they don't like cyclists, I assume. Whereas if you're just as a normal person, people give you more space.
Well, yeah, this is saying that safety gear may inadvertently increase hostility and aggressive behavior towards vulnerable road users.
I can believe that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
We know.
But this is not a surprise to me. You're saying, wow, is it a surprise?
No, but
no.
I think the wow comes from
the fact people are dicks.
It's proven.
Yeah.
Which is why it's wow.
Yeah.
It's like we know it from riding bikes.
On the topic of helmets, there was actually some bits around Italy recently. One of their politicians proposed mandatory helmet laws and number plates for bikes and all that, the nonsense that gets talked about in the Daily Mail. Yeah, which luckily it got thrown out. But those it's a shame that it is brought up every now and then, isn't it? It's just like it doesn't. We all know Australia is a great example. They brought in mandatory helmet law, so you have to ride with a helmet in Australia. Everyone stopped riding bikes. And the thing that really makes cycling safer, proven to make cycling safer, more people riding bikes.
Yeah.
Because it raises, people are more used to cyclists on the road. It means some of the people in cars, more of them are likely to ride bikes and they become more tolerant.
I have always said because, we've both ridden a lot in London, and people would always go, oh, riding in London, that must be horrible. And I've always said, London's the safest place.
That's great, isn't it?
Central London, there's so many cyclists that you swarm.
So many cyclists, but the infrastructure's got better.
Well, yeah, but
that's the other thing,
without
right?
the infrastructure, if you're at a set of traffic lights, you're probably one of 50 if you're commuting. Like a car isn't coming anywhere near you.
No way.
Like they're not able to go. Like it's just safer because of the volume.
Yeah. Whereas here it's a little bit less. So we're in Newcastle for the viewers at home. Certainly in the surrounding areas, maybe not in the city centre, but surrounding areas. If you filter up to, there's a red light and there's a few cars in the line. If you filter and ride up to the front, I've had people wondering what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Surprised by it. As in, who's this guy? That's just a done thing, and you're supposed to. There's a box at the front. There's they call it an ASL, Advanced Stop Line.
Do they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
There you go.
Age, sex, location. It stands for. And there's a box
that
there.
Was a good fact.
But yeah, both were good. They're both just different things. The box at the front you're supposed to stop in, and people up here surprised sometimes. I guess they're less used to it. But
I think Chris Boardman, the ex-professional cyclist who has done a lot of, I don't know how to describe it. He's very vocal about getting more people riding bikes. And I've definitely seen lots of stuff from him in the past where he talks about or pushes against the idea of mandatory helmets, mandatory number plates and insurance and all that because of what you were saying about Australia.
Into people doing it.
And that's kids ride into school and things like that. There should be more of that, not less of it.
Oh, totally.
But on the other side of that, if having a number plate and insurance and a helmet and tax or whatever the requirements were, if that meant that every time I rode my bike, the people in the cars that are arseholes go, oh, but I've won because you've got a license
Clearly,
plate.
no, they're not going to do that.
But if it did, I would accept it.
I had to circle back to the helmet thing we were talking about at the start. If you want to wear one, go for it. If you don't want to wear one, also go for it.
I will continue to wear a helmet on all rides.
What about a Hovding helmet?
Oh, yes. I've heard of it. Do you know about it?
Yeah, I know exactly. I know what you're going to say, and I have a funny thing to say about it.
I looked it up. Me and Emily were looking it up the other day, and I'd always thought it was just ludicrous because they used to have one in Cloud9 Cycles, which sadly is no more. And I remember seeing it back in the day and just thinking that is just a joke.
For the viewers at home, this is a device. Do they call it a helmet? No.
I don't know.
It's a thing that goes around your neck.
Yep.
And if you have a crash, not everyone crashes, not everyone's Nick. If you have a crash, it inflates and protects your head.
Yes, it's got like the current versions of it have got like AI technology, and it deploys in like under a second. I've seen the videos. It is honestly
I hope it was a lot less than a second. A second would be, what if you can crash in less than a second?
0.1 of a second, it inflates.
Really? Okay,
yeah.
That's
0.1.
acceptable.
Is that okay?
Yeah, acceptable. Thank you.
I actually watched some videos on it the other day, and it's really cool. It's obviously incredibly ugly, but I think if I was still living in London, I remember now off the back of this study where you're more human if you haven't got a helmet on.
Yeah.
If I still commuted in London, I would buy one of these because you're going to look more human. I'd always quite often commute in normal clothes if I was just going to work and back from work rather than going for a ride around Regents or whatever. And you're going to look good. The videos I've seen, it is legitimately really phenomenal.
Okay.
I think it's cool. I think it's really cool.
Nice.
And, in theory, if you crash, well, not in theory, if you crash, you're meant to replace your helmet.
Yeah.
So the same thing applies here. It inflates and then you replace it.
You put a new one on. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Very cool.
Many years ago when I was just exclusively making vlogs, someone made fun of a yellow hat that I was wearing. So I replied saying, oh, it's a hat that inflates when you crash, protects you. And then for like a year after, he kept commenting, asking where he could get one. I just never replied. Sorry. But
what, is it just like a baseball cap? Or like
no, it was like a beanie hat.
Oh, right.
Poor guy. We probably never got. Maybe he's found this. Maybe he's listening now. There you go. Finally a solution.
Hovding.
Jonas Vingegaard rode one by for a stage of the Criterium de Dauphiné. Now there's speculation in the press about whether he'll go one by for the Tour de France.
Surely not.
No, he won't. Of course he won't. This isn't the first time this season the pros have turned to one by. Roglic used a one by gravel group set on the final stage of the Giro, and Campenaerts used one earlier in the season. I assume that was for aero gains. My opinion on this, there is some situations where you can get away with using a one by gearing ratio, which is great.
I would like to say that pros often do what they're told to do.
Oh, 100%.
And this could very much just be the marketing.
We want to sell some one by stuff.
Like a prime example of that is, and we mentioned it last time, the Specialized LA Sprint. Peter Sagan used it in some race once upon a time. I think it was more of a critty race, like the Dauphine or whatever it's called.
Great piece of marketing.
Because they wanted to sell a bike, and I'm sure it did really well. So perhaps this is just because manufacturers want to sell more one-by group sets.
And then people talk about it on podcasts.
There is definitely a hate for one-by.
By people who haven't ridden one-by.
Possibly.
Sometimes.
We did a video a couple of months back, and it was Pro Bike Mechanics 10 most hated products, and one of the things Nick said was one by front mechs.
Front mechs, yeah.
He is a big believer of one by for all applications. He likes the simplicity of it. You can account for it with different gear ranges and things like that. There are obviously some negatives. There are places that it makes more sense than others. I guess the question at this point is, do we think we are going to see more pros using one by, particularly in this Tour de France?
TTs, potentially, yes.
Well, I imagine they're already using one by a lot.
Flat stages, potentially, yeah. But because I assume like the the benefits, well, particularly with like Roubaix and races like that, there were a few riders using one by because of chain drop. So they have like a small, tiny, like instead of a front make, they have a small thing to keep the chain on. Chain alignment.
Catcher.
Chain
catcher.
Is it chain catcher?
I think it's called a chain catcher.
Chain catcher will be on the inside on like a 2x system. It's a chain guide. On a mountain bike, which will be the chain guide. And narrow wide chainring teeth, because it doesn't ever have to leave the ring. So you literally have like a wide tooth and then a small tooth and a wide tooth and a small tooth. So it interfaces with the chain really nicely, and you're very unlikely for the chain to come off. So in that situation, when you're bouncing over cobbles or you're doing a TT and you do not want your chain to drop and you're using weird aero chainring, it's a benefit.
Do you know off the top of your head if a aero 1x chainring is actually more aero?
Faster, yes. You can even buy chainring covers to cover your existing chain ring, which is worth a few watts. So yes, and people will do it.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not worth that much, but when you're an elite, top-end professional athlete, you care about...
Average person, there's no reason to, but if you want that gain, that is one, because it's surface, isn't it?
So, should more of us be riding 1x?
All of my personal bikes are 1x. Gravel, road, and mountain.
You are a strong cyclist. Don't challenge me on that. Don't challenge me on that. My point with that is, if you're strong, you can ride 1x on basically any conditions.
I think even if you are not strong, you can put on a smaller chainring and ride pretty much everything you want to.
I think
remove pretty much from that. You can ride anything you want to. You just might spin out on a really fast descent. And I think there's a lot of people that think they need really, really big gears to get down the descent, when actually they don't end up pedaling anyway. So it's like they think they want to, but they don't.
I never pedal on the descent.
There you go. Most people are descending like you.
Well, yeah.
They don't need it. So.
And I'm sure you do most of the time.
Most of the time, yeah. Although I might, the 1x would get me in trouble if I went on a road ride with Tony and we were with 5 other guys and we were pushing it down a descent, and then suddenly the riders are riding away from you. Or if you're in a race, the race can ride away from you down a descent and you haven't got the gears. That's the situation where you need it. But in terms of actually spinning out, I mean, we should try it on. I have a Rotor group set with 46 tooth chainring and only an 11, because that's the smallest you can get on that group set on the back. I bet if we go outside and we try and spin out, you're going really fast. It'll be like 45 mile an hour.
Of course you will.
Maybe faster.
It's definitely...
You're into aero tuck. If you're on your own. That's not to say if you're riding with other people, if you're doing a chain gang or something like that, then you might start struggling. So
I think the thing with 1x is the optimum way of running 1x is if you're buying it fresh and you're considering the chainring and the cassette size when you do that. I think some people, when they think of 1x, they go, well, I've just lost gears because you've taken my mech away, but I've got the same tooth, I've got the same chainring on the front or a similar chainring on the front. Therefore, all of a sudden, I don't have easier gears. Or the other way around, I don't have harder gears. Whereas I think typically what happens, so if Nick is building a customer bike, which is a road bike, and it's 1x, it's going to have very different gear ratios to someone that is buying a 2x bike or is buying a 1x gravel bike. It all comes down to gear ratios at the end of the day.
On that topic, Sram is much better than Shimano for those ratios.
Right.
Because not only do they have the Explore gravel group set, which is big range anyway, but then you can start introducing the Eagle mechs, the mountain bike mechs. So if you buy a mountain bike mech, then suddenly you can run a 1052 cassette, which is absolutely ludicrous. Or even third party, you can get a 9-tooth, I can't remember the name of the brand, it's like E something. They do a 9-tooth sprocket on the end of their cassette. So you get 952, which is bonkers range. And then you could have anything on the front you wanted. So I use the same cassette on my mountain bike, which has 34 tooth chainring, and then I switch it onto my gravel bike, same cassette, sorry, and it's on a 46 tooth or even a 50 tooth if you want to go faster. And it's way enough gears.
Yeah,
that compatibility and being able to switch. SRAM have definitely got that. They've nailed that. It was really good.
I have to say, where I don't like, so on my gravel bike, I've now got outrageous gearing. So I've got a mullet setup with a mountain bike rear mech.
Yeah.
But I've got a, what is it, 1050 or whatever.
1050 or 1052, yeah.
What I definitely do notice on that bike is the jump between the cassette is huge.
It's too much for you.
It is big.
Yeah.
But it's fine.
Yeah.
Like, you can always work it out. I think if I'm in like roadie mode, if you're like plowing it down a road and you just can't quite get your cadence where you want it. But then I just go, oh, well, it doesn't matter. I'll just slow down a bit.
Yeah.
I don't need to go fast on that bike ever.
Speed up a bit.
Well, yeah, but I wouldn't, because then that's like, I don't need to make more effort.
Yeah,
I'm out to go, oh yeah, it feels good. So I just
I mean, you're not gonna you again, to go back to the sort of paceline idea. You wouldn't want to ride one of those cassettes with a slightly bigger gap in between in a paceline or in a race. Like it would just be it would be annoying.
Yeah.
So, look at the riding that you're going to be doing, and if it's flat and around town with maybe a couple of other people and you're all kind of the same speed, the one by is probably fine.
I know people.
Bike pack the one by. I rode all the way through Spain. I rode the biggest, the highest through road in Spain, I believe, which is Calo Alta. You go up to these observatories. I was with Chris, and it's a huge climb, and I took the road to one by up there, and then had a great time on the descent on the way down.
Well, I think one by really lends itself to bike packing. I think we are going to see some one by this year, though. I don't know when.
Because of marketing.
I think the manufacturers are going to go, and where can we squeeze this in?
Yeah.
I think there'll be a feature on it for any time trial stages, and I wonder if there's a stage in there somewhere where they're going to be like, because sometimes they have like a gravel stage, or not a gravel, but like a cobbly stage, or something that's a bit more eventful. Like they might be looking at maybe squeezing in one by there, and I think the manufacturers will make a big song and dance about it as well, because for whatever reason they want people on one by. I guess because then they might buy another bike. Listeners take over. This is the section where we answer some of the questions that you send us. Our first question is from Joe, and he's asking what we think about the GCN bike build for under $1,000 video or series that came out recently. I understand that this was a 3-part series where the presenter was making a bike, building up a bike for under $1,000. The reason it's a bit controversial is he acquired some of the parts that he just had lying around. And the most controversial of that was a Dura-Race crank that, as part of the build, he valued at £100. And it was later corrected as actually being more like £400, which is a very significant proportion of that build cost. You actually know this guy, don't you?
Yeah, Alex Payton. So we used to race together, same team.
Which team's that?
Pedal Heaven.
Pedal Heaven.
Yep, which then became Canyon, Iceberg, Canyon. They had a few different iterations of the team. Sadly, the team folded at the end of last year or the beginning of this year, which is really sad to see. But yeah, we raced together. He's now a GCN presenter, and he did this video, and he looks in this video where he addresses the comments.
The barrage of comments.
Looks broken. He just looks sad compared to how he usually is on camera. So it's like, God, you like YouTube commenters, you guys.
I think you got a lot of comments, a lot of hate on it. Perhaps rightly so.
I can sympathise, having raced and then run a cycling YouTube channel, that I have the same weird situation of just having Dura-Ace cranks. Like, I found a boxed Dura-Ace crank brand new in my loft when I left my old flat, and I honestly couldn't tell you where it was from. It's like that's the level of just stuff you have lying around. Identifying the price wrongly, that was his mistake, but I can see why it happens.
I guess
it's not deserving of he's not the devil.
I guess if the pricing is correct, as long as it is a bike for under £1,000.
But maybe someone should have checked the video.
Sorry?
Maybe someone should have checked the video before it went out.
Maybe they just thought it was good.
They have lots of people.
Good for the comments.
Yeah. Or maybe
they did it on purpose, perhaps.
Conspiracy. If we suddenly do, should we start doing that?
No.
No.
I think it's maybe, I guess, a little bit out of touch. Because if you're building a £1,000 bike, there's basically no scenario that a Dura-Ace crank's going on it.
Nah.
Like it's a £400 crank. It's ludicrous to think that would go on that bike.
Yeah. To counter that, you can probably get a crank which is almost as good for £100 from eBay. Like, it's not that much difference.
As in not.
So look,
not
here's the person watching a video trying to make a bike for £1,000. Yeah, like if you were looking at them being like picky about it, yes. But is the bike going to be pretty much the same if you put a cheaper crank on? Also, yes. Like, you're going to get still a useful video. Still, you know, most of it's fine. So people just get so wound up about these things. It's like, come on.
Well, yeah, but he has literally just not done what he said he was going to do.
Okay.
Why not just do that in the first place and put a used Ultegra crank on it for 120 quid or whatever?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, well...
Because
Here's
making videos is really hard
and
expensive, and like you're thinking about a million things, and sometimes you make mistakes.
So yeah, I guess in that sense, perhaps they were trying to save some cost.
Yeah.
But they are a very big organisation.
I would have thought someone would have just checked it over. Could we check over our videos? There's only 2 of us.
Do we?
I do.
Oh, right, okay, good.
You do. Sometimes you send me a message like, "Oh, that you probably take that thing out in that bit," because you upload videos to YouTube for the audience at home, and Jimmy, we have like multiple logins so you can see them all. So once they've been uploaded and they're all scheduled, ready to go. So most of our videos are actually like ready a week before they go live, or a few days before. You can have a look from a remote location.
Yep.
I've got a weird vision of you like in a snow bunker, remote location. Just checking the videos. I don't know why you'd be in a snow bunker.
Well, I wouldn't have Wi-Fi if I did.
Yeah.
So you're saying that you think it's fine. I'm saying...
No, I'm not saying it's fine. I'm saying I can sympathise. And there's not many people that can. But being, you know, in the world of elite bike racing, you accumulate. And there's no like way to say this. Like you have an insane, obscene amount of expensive bike stuff that accumulates. And... it wasn't like, oh, look at this guy, he's got a Dura-Ace crank. It's not like, you know, it's not like, it's not that, like, exciting.
Yeah,
it's just,
I guess the issue here is he just valued it wrong.
Yeah.
But he did fix it in the next video where he was very sad. So sad. The next question is from Kevin.
Am I supposed to read it?
Would you say AliExpress unbranded carbon wheels are a safe upgrade, or should I steer clear?
Oh, I actually asked Joe. So I've bought a set of AliExpress super cheap carbon wheels. I think they were just over £200. So not super cheap, but they are 4 carbon wheels. They are very well priced, and they are branded. I asked Joe from China Cycling, who's been on. You know, he has his YouTube channel. He was on the Nero show recently chatting about bike stuff. We've talked about him in a video before. He lives in China, and he acts as an agent for some Chinese companies that are making products, cycling products. And he was like, he would probably steer clear of the completely unbranded stuff. The named brands, and he gave me a list. I don't have them to hand right now. There was a few cheaper options there, one of them being the wheels that we've actually got. So stay tuned to this channel, subscribe, check out the YouTube videos if you're watching this on Spotify or whatever, and we will give you an example of some carbon wheels which actually are considered safe. Whether they're fast or good is another question.
Good, excellent.
So yeah.
We have another question from Kevin. Which electronic group set is better, SRAM Rival ETAP or Shimano 105 Di2? And are there anything on anything on AliExpress that's coming through that can rival these?
Oh, cool.
I haven't used Shimano 105 Di2. I've seen it. I think it's going to be a very good group set, but it's oddly expensive. I've used SRAM Rival ETAP and it's very good. For me, currently, the perfect place in terms of value in group set is SRAM Rival ETAP. It's very good modern technology. It's heavy, but it's not too heavy. The weight is fine. It functions really well. It's durable. For me, the winner at the minute is Rival ETAP.
You also have the compatibility with the gravel stuff, like the Explorer stuff.
It's moving.
Whereas the Shimano one is kind of, I mean, it is a road group set. What is the price of Shimano 105 12-speed?
On paper, it's something like £1,800. I don't know what you can get it for.
Okay.
You have to also factor in that if you're buying 105 Di2, you're very likely also paying a professional mechanic to install it for you.
Sigma Sports has it for £1,299.
That's not too bad.
And that's without rotors, but everything else.
I saw Nick.
Whereas the rival one, what you could buy that for it's about the same price.
I think it's probably about
A tiny bit less. Tiny bit less. So, I mean, much of a muchness, really.
I watched Nick installing a Shimano 105 Di2 group set the other day, and he had the bike on a stand plugged into his workshop computer because he had to upgrade the firmware before it would actually work.
Well,
so
I do that with the SRAM ones as well, although is that a wireless
You just go boop, boop, boop,
Is
done.
it got an app?
And it's usually the consumer that does that.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Marginally easier to install if you got the wireless one, I guess, as well.
Isn't there an AliExpress group set coming soon, an electric one, or is it already been launched? It's L-Twoo, isn't it?
Yeah, GC Performance, guy on YouTube, shout out GC Performance. He has one
Right.
already in the box, ready to go. So he's going to do his outdoor test soon.
Right.
Where's our one? Please.
Have you tried to get one?
Yeah, I've been chatting to the guy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, guys, you've been asking for us to test the new wireless. Is it wireless? No, it's just electric. It's not wireless. Electric L-Twoo hydraulic group set. ERX it's called. And yeah, we're trying to get hold of the guy to send us it.
Do you know how much it is by any chance?
No.
I would imagine it's going to be under Rival and 105 Di2 pricing.
You can just keep talking.
And you're going to find out.
And I'm going to find out. Because I did actually look at it. I sent you a screenshot, do you remember?
I think it's
I was
about
like, I want to buy it.
I think it's about £800, £900.
See, this is saying $650.
Oh, wow.
But no, there's no import costs. There never is.
Officially or
I think they're sneaky about it. So the
it
ERX
might be
here,
import
this is no, because they obviously send it as a gift or something, and then you end up not having to pay. They do something from their end, and I ordered so much stuff from AliExpress, and less than 2 years' time, I'm going to get a bunch of letters through the door.
I wouldn't. I think it's probably officially.
There should be import.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want it with a battery, which you obviously do. I guess that's if you wanted to buy two and move the battery in between bikes. £633. But that's only shifters, mechs, and calipers. So no BB, no chain.
Yeah.
No chain set. So that it's actually edging on the price. It's about the same price. This is what Nick was saying about the other mechanical group sets. Once you add in all of those things, if you want good quality ones, it's going to cost you the same as 105. But 105 isn't desirable, is it? It just looks like, I mean, even rivals. Like if I was like 105 rival, same price, rival, because it looks cooler.
105
something about it. Like it's got better.
It's like super stealthy. It's all black. It's very shiny.
But they purposefully don't make it as nice looking as Ultegra or Durace.
It's the same shape now, though, isn't it?
Same shape, but the logos and everything. Like it's that stuff. It's the design work they've done on it. It just doesn't look quite.
I think it's quite nice.
Okay.
I think my go-to is SRAM Rival E-Tap at the minute because I've used it. It works really well, and it's very simple. Everything just bolts off and bolts on, and it just knowing there isn't all of those extra cables just makes me feel like, well, this is easier just to do stuff with. And it's move around, change bike, whatever.
That compatibility thing with it again. I know going back to the mountain bike, Eagle Mix mullet style group set. You can just put What did we do? We just bought some rival levers to convert we were like, the bike's not completely, I needed the red shifters for something else, for a road build. And then all we had to do to change that was just get a couple of rival levers, and they came with the calipers, and it was like really affordable.
Oddly cheap.
Yeah, oddly cheap, yeah.
Considering what they are.
And it's all 12 speed, just works, plug it in, boop, done. I mean, I'd choose the rival.
There we go.
Between those two.
If you have any questions or stories you want to send us, send them to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk.
Rate my ride. So this section of the podcast, it was our first ever episode last week.
It was.
That we dropped. And we did a Rate My Ride section. We don't think we're going to be going ahead with the Rate My Ride section going forwards because it is too visual. So it required you guys looking at bikes. We're going to do one today, but we reckon the Rate My Ride section is going to be moved to its own dedicated video. Is that right?
I would like to do that. I think that's a good idea.
I think it was really good fun.
I enjoy it.
Yeah,
I enjoy
and the
it.
people who watched it on YouTube, I think, had a great time. So I think we should continue with that. The Rate My Ride from today, we'll give you one last one from Peter.
Hello, Peter.
From Peter, I built this myself using parts pretty much exclusively bought from AliExpress, except for the tyres, they're not. Only the bar tape and BB were bought in the UK, and the tyres. The frame is a Trifox X16TA, real catchy, which cost £400. And the wheels are 50 millimeters deep from Elite Wheels and cost £270 for the pair. That's really good value.
Do we have Elite wheels?
We've got some Elite. We got the Elite Wheels Drive, so they're more expensive.
That was on Jimmy's? I built Jimmy a bike from AliExpress.
Yeah.
It was those wheels.
Yeah, that was those wheels, super low ones.
They're very good.
So those are like the more expensive, really premium version with the nice hub and stuff. Carbon spokes. These ones are the slightly lower end ones, but I mean, they look great, don't they? I spec'd it with Shimano 105 from AliExpress, but have no idea. I wonder how much cheaper 105 is from AliExpress.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, because they do. I've noticed GRX pops up on there as well. I have no idea if it's genuine or not. My instinct would be that it is genuine. Having looked at the prices, speculation or fact, but the prices are not like mega cheap or anything. To the gram, it weighs exactly the same as the real McCoy from Shimano. Altogether, it costs £1,200 to build, and 3,000 miles later, including London to Paris and Ride London, it's still going strong without a single fault. I still get salty comments from other cyclists who tell me it will fall apart under me. I think they're just angry, and I paid a third of what they did for the same product.
Does that look? That looks a bit like a Scott frame.
It doesn't look like a Scott.
It does. Does it not look like the RC Addict, the new ones you've got? They've got that quite slender fork.
I mean, that's all modern road bikes because they all look very, very similar.
Yeah, everything's got drop stays now.
Yeah, exactly. So they have the cheap Chinese frames like this. I say cheap, £400 is still, that's a lot of money for a bicycle. But in terms of performance frames, they have definitely been updated in the last few years, haven't they? They're starting to take the open mold one. We have an Elves Balath, maybe not.
Say that again.
Elves Falath. And it's not.
It's a
Vanyar. No, it's Falath. It's good TH at the end, and it's not a Balath. I'm embarrassing myself for no reason. That's a Vanguard Pro. Anyway, do you remember it had a Cervelo sticker in the BB?
Oh,
it's that kind of like that. So when frame molds have been used by the company, they eventually become open mold, and people can then use them. The factories can then use them to produce their own frames.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean it's the same bike because the layout can be different and stuff, but the shape of them will be the same. So this is probably a bike which is now slightly outdated and being replaced by a newer model. So it will probably look identical.
It doesn't.
To some sort of big brands one in the past.
It's not hydraulic discs.
What's that crack? My eyesight is honestly not good enough.
I believe it says like CVR on it.
Yeah, it's an AliExpress crank as well.
It looks very carbon.
No, it's not. That's alloy. It'll be heavy-ish.
It's cool. It's a very stealthy bike. A bit of a red pop on it.
Red cables. I'm assuming. Maybe he got the Jaguar ones that are compressionless, which would help with the brakes.
The non-hydraulic disc brakes.
As long as they're not routed horribly through a pair of handlebars, which doesn't work if you're using the compressionless housing.
I would say the only thing I don't like about this bike is it looks like it's probably an AliExpress integrated handlebar. I just don't like integrated handlebars.
It looks almost exactly the same as the one that's on that came with the Elves.
Yes, yes, the ones that we chopped up with an angle grinder.
Yeah, indoors and breathing in all the fumes.
I personally prefer the aesthetic of stem and bar.
Yeah, I would have done the same.
But yeah, looks like.
No, I mean, it's proof you can. Yeah, but someone else might attempt the same thing, and they might choose a component which is crap. So it is a bit of a minefield. Do at your own risk. He's got lucky, and that's good. So nice one, Peter. Goes to show you don't have to spend loads and loads of money to get a bike, which is very fast.
It's still a lot of money.
That was still quite a lot of money.
Oh yeah, rate. We've got a rate.
Rate
don't
out
we?
of 10. I would give it a 6.5. I don't like the red saddle and bar tape.
I'm not personally massive keen on the red saddle and bar tape. I'm going to go with 7. It loses a point for not having hydraulic brakes. And I do not know enough about AliExpress bike stuff to be fully comfortable with all of the stuff that they're pushing. We are going to introduce a new section called Overrated or Underrated. It's almost going to be like a quiz, so it's not in any kind of detail. We're not going deep diving into these.
8 quizzes.
And we're going to run through some stuff, and we're going to comment on whether we think they're overrated or not. The first one, in line with the rest of this episode, one bite. Is it overrated or underrated?
Overrated for racing, underrated for normal people riding bikes.
I hate how good that answer is. Yeah, I can't add any more to that. So yes, correct. Well done. Tick.
Thank you. I
You
one
win.
point in the quiz.
Next one. New Shimano, Claris and Sora.
Underrated. Well, you say new. They've been out for a while. But the newest version of those.
Yes, yeah.
Amazing. They both have reach adjustment. Sora is considered a mid-range group set by Shimano. So people underestimate how good Sora is in particular.
So you're saying they're underrated?
Underrated.
Yes, I agree.
People turn their nose up at them when actually you could ride. I'd do a ride with Tony on a set of Sora.
Yeah,
fine.
It's very good.
It has reach adjustment. It looks cool. It's nice and ergonomic. The cables go in.
Here's a quick question.
Yeah.
Would you pick one of those over 105 DO2?
No.
Okay, cool. Sled gravel bars, overrated.
100% overrated.
They're pointless.
Some people know, because there's some people will like using them because they don't have a mountain bike, but they want to ride stuff which is ridiculously under bikes, like Nick.
People don't use the drops.
It's not using the drops, it's the width, isn't it? It's so the flared, so they go super wide, and then they have to make them flared, otherwise you end up with wrist, shoulder pain, back pain.
So from that, you're getting the flared hand position.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking just the drop is flared.
Oh, the drop is flared. Yeah, that annoys me. I don't like having the flare on my gravel bike. I wish it was just a straight drop. Because on my gravel bike, I want to, Unbound, I'm like, okay, well, I'll get into a more aero position just so I can ride this bit slightly easier. And then I put my hands down and then I'm really wide. But I'm like, that's annoying. I just saw a picture of Alex Dowsett, who's doing a gravel race, and he's Mr. Aero. And he had a really wide drop handle where he's sat there in the drops. He's probably thinking, fuck my life.
Overrated.
Overrated.
Agreed. Oval chainrings.
Overrated. Having said that, I raced those for 2 seasons in the Nationals, against Geraint Thomas. I didn't beat him, but they were fine to race.
If it was not an oval chainring, perhaps you would have beat Geraint Thomas.
True. Let's go with that. So massively overrated. I would have been a pro.
I actually think that they are neither overrated or underrated. I think some people just know of them and other people don't. I don't ever hear people overly patriotic or shouting about oval chainrings that much.
When they came out, there was always we used to sell Q rings at the shop that I worked at, and I rode O-symmetrics, which are way more angular. Those are the ones that Bradley Wiggins, Chris Froome won the Tour de France are using. And they would have these power claims of 3% more power or stuff like that. Still, there's not been any proof all these years later.
Well, now I think they're overrated.
But they're
Based on
definitely
that.
you drop your chain.
So thank you for that information.
Yeah.
Overrated.
Shifting was crap. Overrated.
Electronic shifting. Underrated.
Underrated.
It is phenomenal.
Yeah,
I
it's
hate,
really good.
I hate how good it is.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Yeah.
I was very resistant. To
You didn't want it to be good.
No,
That's weird.
I kind of knew it was going to be good, and I was putting myself off because now
It's
when
unbelievably reliable. I have never had a battery fail or a motor in the mech fail, or it's never stopped working. Ever.
it just works.
It just works. There's like Boru from Herne Hill Velodrome is riding around the world right now
Yeah.
in some pretty remote locations. He's got SRAM Force, ETAP, wireless. It's just reliable.
The caveat is you don't need it, but it is so much better than you think it's going to be.
It is good,
Oh,
but it is really expensive.
you've seen the next one, Keto Diets. Do you want to explain what a keto diet is?
A keto diet is a diet which is extremely low in carbohydrates, so high in fats and protein. So you're eating, I don't know exactly the percentage or the amount of calories it has to be, but essentially it puts your body into a ketogenic state, which means you produce, your body produces ketones, which you use as fuel.
So it's an energy source for your body.
Essentially, yeah.
I think that it is incredibly overrated, and I think people think that it is some kind of like mystical power for becoming a better athlete, and I think it's just a fad diet. That is different from using ketones as essentially a supplement for performance.
Oh, well, the ones, so we did a video on this a while back where you can drink the ketone and then you have kind of
That is a different thing. So I'm not talking about that.
Yeah. I remember there was some like people who are following keto diets tweeting about this athlete who broke, like it was like our record or something like that. It was a big deal.
Yeah.
And she was drinking ketones, and the person's like, the power of ketones, you should be on a keto diet. But it wasn't. She wasn't on a keto diet.
Exactly, yeah. The person was very unlikely to be on a ketone diet, but was using ketones as a supplement.
Yeah. So in no study ever has a ketogenic diet outperformed a carbohydrate.
Fact or speculation?
No, fact.
Okay.
In no study ever.
Yeah. I can't imagine.
Has it outperformed fueling probably with carbs? Is what Will told me. So nutritionist for EF Pro Cycling.
Yep.
And PhD in.
So yeah, overrated.
Yep.
Final one on the list. Bivvy bags.
Bivvy bags.
A bivvy bag.
We've slept in in two bivvy bags, not the same one. We slept in two bivvy bags. Can you imagine? It would be so close.
But you borrowed my bivvy bag, didn't you?
Yeah.
They're like the poshest ones in the world.
That was mint. So a
nearly a
normal
tent.
bivvy bag is just like a
Sack.
a human sack, big tent, which you get into, and you wear a sleeping bag underneath, but it protects you from the elements, and usually just has a little face hole.
Yeah.
Your ones were amazing.
Alpgate
Yours and
ones.
Emily's, and they have like a mini tent around your head, so it's elevated, and then a net to stop the bugs coming in and stuff. However, even that one, too hot, horrible. So overrated. I would say
overrated.
sleeping in a bush in general, overrated.
Sleeping outdoors when bikepacking, overrated. Always stay at a hotel at a B&B.
There's the option.
Always.
Yeah, I've slept in a few bushes, and I always had a terrible time.
Yeah, same. Never has it been good. Actually, you said to me once, the key to it is do it so long that you're so tired that actually it's fine.
Yeah. Oh no, there reaches a point where anywhere is fine.
Well,
Then you don't need a bivvy. Because you just like, I could do this now with the podcast, because it's been such a long podcast. I can just sleep. Yeah, I can sleep.
Yeah,
right
okay.
now.
Go on, do it then, I dare you.
Matt Falconer, he came top 4 TCR,
Maybe
otherwise known as 4th. No, I don't think he's maybe higher. Anyway,
he's phenomenal.
ultra cycling beast. He swears by the catnap. So he'll be at a table in a cafe halfway through Montenegro somewhere, and he swears by just having little sleeps of so he puts his head on the table, and then because he's on a table and it's not very comfortable, he knows he'll wake up 20 minutes later and then he can go.
So back in my ultra marathon days and long distance stuff days, there was loads of studies that people were working on which are exactly that. So a lot of the ultra distance runners, like the runners where they're doing 600-mile runs, they'll do everything on 20-minute power naps.
Really?
They
So the
and then,
optimum
and
amount
then
of
occasionally like an hour or here or there. But like regular 20s.
Sorry, 600 miles.
Oh, just like the big stuff, the stuff where they're
Okay.
running for days.
Okay.
Um,
Jack did 107 miles, and that was Jack from Garmin.
yeah.
Shout out Jack from Garmin. 107 miles, or 106 miles, and that was multiple days of running.
Yeah. But
Definitely that whole night in between.
he would have done that continuous though, presumably.
He might have had like
But a couple of little naps.
Yeah.
So like there's a movement in the ultra triathlon space. It's a company called, I can't even remember what they're called.
I want to do an ultra, but it would definitely be.
So Matt Pritchard, originally in Dirty Sanchez, his old coach was the same coach as mine. So
As if Pritch from Dirty Sanchez is now an ultra distance athlete.
about 5 years ago, he did a lot of long distance stuff. One of the events I went down and hung out with him at, he was doing a triple Ironman, but as a continuous. So a continuous swim, continuous bike, and then a continuous run.
Right, got you. Yeah.
And you just sleep whenever you want to sleep. At the same event, they were also doing Deckers, where you do it 10. So either an Ironman every day for 10 days, or the continuous swim, the continuous bike, continuous run. But there was also someone there doing a 300-mile run on the same run track that they use that is 1 mile long. So I'm there at the camp, at Pritchard's camp, waiting for him to come around, asking what he wants next, some mango or whatever.
You're mates with Pritch from Dirty Sanchez.
And this guy, he just run around. He's doing 1 mile loops for 300 loops. And I remember at the time, because Pritchard was doing it because his coach, Mark Whittle, was telling him what to do. And there was just regular 20-minute naps. Because, you get to a point where you're just knackered. You can easily just sleep whenever. And that was the thing.
So
you just go like, get him in the back of the van, 20 minutes. Right, get him back out again.
Yeah.
It's a good one. Not bivvy bags, though. Overrated.
I want to do an ultra run, not cycling. I've kind of done ultra cycling, I haven't done an official race, but I've done 500k one day, that kind of thing. So it's a long way that will be considered ultra. Running, I'd like to do an ultra marathon, which officially is considered anything longer than a marathon.
Officially, yeah.
However, that's not really. If you did 26.2? If you did 26.3 miles, it's not really an ultra, is it?
They usually start at 50 kilometers, which is, I don't even know what that
30-something miles. 30.
Yeah. So it's not a huge amount more than a marathon, but it's more. But typically, the 50Ks will be like you've got to self-navigate, or it'll be off-road.
Off-road or something. Okay.
And not all of them. Some of them will be road, but like a lot of the ultra stuff, again, because it's such a huge distance, it's not going to be like a closed road race like London Marathon is. It's going to be trails and paths and roads that you wouldn't necessarily think of running 100 miles on.
The reason I like the idea of it is it's safer. So I'm a bit apprehensive about doing an ultra race with the amount of accidents people have, particularly at night.
Yeah.
And that pressure to be, because you are tired. Inevitably, you end up tired, and then you're on the road. Whereas if you're running, you're probably not going to be in as dangerous of a position, assuming the run isn't along the side of a road. I hope you can find ones that aren't.
I have done multiple ultras.
Yeah.
And
they do on roads.
Love it.
Oh, you like it?
It is just...
So what's the furthest you've run?
Not hundreds of miles. It was the Brecon Ultra Marathon. So it's 2 26-mile loops of the Brecon Beacons. So the reason there's two reasons it's unbelievably hard. One, it's in November, so it starts at 6 a.m. in November. It's pitch black. It's unbelievably hilly. So it's like, it isn't just a casual, double marathon. It's brutal.
Yeah.
I ended up not finishing it because my leg blew to bits, and I was like, I refused to quit, and then I kept going, and then I ended up on the side of this mountain with no one anywhere near me for like a couple of hours because it was that kind of like blown up, the course. And I was just like, fuck, I'm gonna have to phone the bloody like air ambulance to take me off the mountain.
In reach.
So it took me about 3 hours to cover about 2 miles because it was just up the side of a mountain, back down the other side to a checkpoint. I was like, I'm done. I'm gonna have to bin this one. So I've always wanted to go back and do it again, but yeah, there is something special about that, and I think it's the same as doing the cycling stuff.
Yeah.
There's there's just that thing. You just get into a state where it's just like magical. But it's in theory safe for off-road.
Meditative. Yeah.
I didn't think we'd be talking about running today.
No.
Next week on the ultramarathon.
Already better than the Running Shows podcast.
Put that in.
Fuck up of the week.
My favourite section, and one that I think we need to write a theme tune for.
Fuck up of the week.
Please never do that again.
We're going to put that in every single week now.
So what is it? What is the fuck up of the week, Francis?
For me, isn't it? I lost my bike. I flew back from LA after Unbound. I flew to LA afterwards and then flew back from LA, got to Heathrow, missed my flight, stood in a queue for 4 hours. They said my bike was not going to go to Newcastle and it was going to get put on my plane. And I got there and it was lost. It's still lost. You're going to give me a call.
So yeah.
Quite a few days now.
So your connection from Heathrow to Newcastle was delayed.
No, my first flight was delayed because there was something wrong with the left phalange. No, there was something wrong with the cockpit. There was some
That doesn't sound good.
they need engine. I know. I was thinking do I actually want to be on this plane? It took them about an hour and a half to fix it before we then took off. Yeah, and they came back twice. So they were like, oh, we're going to leave in 10 minutes. Like, it's all fixed, leave in 10 minutes. And they went back on it and then I had to do it again. So, yeah.
We perhaps should have put a trigger warning on it for plane anxiety.
I miss my flight every day. It's the connection back to, whenever I fly back to London and go to Newcastle, miss my flight.
So you did miss it?
Yeah.
So the first one was delayed, and as a result of the first one being delayed, the next one was missed.
Exactly, yeah.
Which meant that your bike ended up in no man's land.
They didn't know what to do with it, yeah.
And you currently don't know where it is.
No.
You need to get one of those little tag things, and then you can tell them where it is.
I'll just borrow one from Cade Media. It's fine.
One what?
Bike.
Okay.
Decathlon one. They're gunshots outside.
I think so. Signalling that they found your bike.
Now for some good news. Hi, Francis and Jimmy.
Hello. 3
mates and I are doing another stupid, borderline painful 12-hour turbo cyclothon to raise money for Lister Neonatal Unit, where our children were looked after. Our awesome little dudes and dudettes were born between 26 and 32 weeks. So far, we've managed to raise a fair few quid, which has enabled the unit to extend the family area. Our next event will be in September, this time with the aim of improving the rooms used when parents prepare to take their incredibly preterm babies home. It's the first time you get to have them not hooked up to God knows how many monitors and to actually leave the confines of the ICU or special care baby unit for the first time. We're looking to raise £60,000 this time. It's a lot of money to continue to make things that little bit less stressful for parents during what is an emotional roller coaster. There's something about seeing someone suffer for a cause that seemingly makes people dip their hand into their pocket, so we're hoping that will be the case again. That's from Andy, Glyn, Pete, and Andy. Is that a mistake, or is there 2 Andys? 2 Andys.
2 Andys.
We'll put a link in the description for anyone who wants to donate, and best of luck to those guys.
That's definitely, they have hit the nail on the head. If you're a cyclist, you know that is going to be unpleasant. You've done a couple of,
turbos, long turbo are the worst.
That is going to be unpleasant.
But my one also raised loads of money, so it was worth it.
So hopefully the same thing happens here then. So hopefully the suffering of Andy, Glyn, Pete, and Andy is going to raise a load of money and they can get what they want. So yeah.
Good luck, chaps.
Good luck, and as Francis said, get donating.
That is the end of this episode. Remember, you can send us your good news stories, questions, and other comments to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk. If you watch the podcast on YouTube, please subscribe, and if you're listening, make sure to hit the follow so you know when the next episode comes out, and see you next time.
Goodbye.